Hello and welcome to today's session of Careers Beyond Academia, which is hosted by Stem Cell Network and Medicine by Design. My name is Stephanie Hume, and I'm the Director of Academic Programs and Partners at Medicine by Design, which is CCRM's Academic Research Division. We're pleased to be co-hosting this series with Stem Cell Network, and our goal is to expose trainees to as many different careers as possible that are available to them after a degree in the life sciences and start to understand the qualifications and experience necessary to secure these roles. Stem Cell Network and Medicine by Design have teamed up to host this series, which has already highlighted a wide variety of careers over the last several years. And you can see past sessions recordings on Stem Cell Network's YouTube. Today's session will also be recorded during the presentations, which will also go up after the session. Today, we're excited to have two speakers who will tell us about their careers related to entrepreneurship. And today we have Lili Aslostovar and Mike Cooke. A few little housekeeping notes before we start. Each of the presentations will be about 10 minutes, and that portion will be recorded. And then afterwards, we'll have a joint Q&A and panel discussion between the two, and that will not be recorded. And if you have any questions for either panelist, please just feel free to pop them into the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. Or you can raise your hand using the raise hand function in Zoom, and we can call you to speak and unmute yourself to ask your question out loud. Now, with that, I would like to introduce our first speaker today, which is Lili Aslostovar, who's also my colleague at CCRM. She is the Manager of Technology and Venture Development at CCRM, which is the Center for Commercialization of Regenerative Medicine. She leads CCRM's Venture by Design program, which is a venture studio approach to creating disruptive biotech companies through systematic innovation and entrepreneurship. Her other industry experience includes working at a startup with a global life science solutions provider and within the CDMO context with a focus on cell and gene therapies. With that, Lili, I will ask you to share your screen and I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. Can folks see my screen okay?
There you go. Looks great.
Okay. Give me 1 second to load my screen here. All right. Yeah, thank you for that intro. My name is Lili Aslostovar. And as Steph mentioned, I work with CCRM, which some of you may be familiar with, although most people know CCRM as a CDMO. But we also have a company creation arm, an investment arm, an internal investment arm. And we also have 2 global hubs, one in Australia and one in Sweden. And with regards to my credentials, I actually have a background in nutrition, but right around 2008 and the buzz around iPSCs, I was in a course and I got introduced to the concept of stem cells. And I thought, this is the future. So I applied to come to Canada, obviously the place to be if you want to pursue stem cells. And I didn't get in the first time because I didn't have the right background. So I did a second master's now in molecular life sciences and eventually got into McMaster, the lab of Dr. Nicky Badia, where he was doing both iPSCs and hematopoietic stem cells. And what came out of my PhD was the first mouse model of leukemic relapse and a cancer cell paper interrogating the cellular and molecular origins of leukemic relapse. And a big shout out to my co-author, Alison Boyd. I then stuck around for a postdoc because I was fortunate to actually take my PhD work to a phase 1 clinical trial that we completed in Hamilton, and that was around a novel therapeutic for AML through a dopamine receptor antagonist. But my thinking evolved over time, and I became more compelled that complex problems require complex system-level solutions, presumably beyond modulating a receptor or two, and cell therapy felt like the perfect match for that. So I joined GE Healthcare in process development. And what that means essentially is taking an open, often fragmented and small scale process, like how we do experiments in academia, and industrialize it so it is clinic ready. I then joined Treadwell Therapeutics because the idea of working in a company based on Dr. Tak Mak's science appealed to me, but I also wanted exposure to the process of bringing a product from the lab to the clinic. And I wanted to be part of that entire process, as opposed to the work I was doing at Cytiva, which was helping others develop their product and me supporting a small portion of that. Unfortunately, things did not work out there, and that's always a risk with a startup. And through structural changes, I was put back on the market. And eventually, Michael May, the CEO of CCRM, who I had previously worked with when I was in Cytiva, got me on the phone and said, do you want to join CCRM's company creation team? And that's where we built Venture by Design. So Venture by Design is our venture studio approach to company creation, where we internally ideate company concepts. And where we are different is that we have a market-first approach as opposed to the traditional technology-centric approach. And essentially, we leverage our sector expertise to map out areas of need, both in the industry or in the clinic, and then internally ideate disruptive solutions around those. And these are hypothesis-driven and need to be tested, which we often do in-house using enabling technologies that we source from around the world, really, like puzzle pieces that come together to solve a complex problem. And we're in our infancy. We officially launched Venture by Design in 2022, but we believe that we are differentiated because of the CCRM model and its machinery that can institutionally support these ventures until they're de-risked enough to attract external funding and live a life of their own. But we're also differentiated because of our extensive manufacturing expertise and infrastructure that can support these new companies through process development, clinical manufacturing, and eventually commercial manufacturing through our affiliate Omnia Bio. Now, typical background for the work, we have, a variety here. These are examples of people that work in our team, but also when I look at the team makeup of other venture studios, you see a lot of masters or Ph.D. Engineers, people with MBA, but we even had a summer student fresh out of undergrad, and she did very well. Essentially what we look for in people who thrive best are T-shaped individuals, which mean deep expertise in their domain, and then otherwise broad expertise in additional areas. Potential salary range, this I really Googled, so take it with a grain of salt, but there's a big range here and it's context dependent. If you are doing a venture studio in the context of a not-for-profit or academia versus you can be on the higher range if you're working in the context of a venture capital or bigger companies like maybe Flagship Pioneering. And what I do in a sentence is that I operate where science, systematic innovation, and I'll come back to that, and company creation converge to build what doesn't exist yet but should. Key skills, these are scientific-based companies, so you need scientific fluency, partnership building skills, storytelling and persuasion, discipline entrepreneurship, and I will come back to that to open this up a little bit more as well. Unofficial skills, you need to be curious, resourceful, thrive under uncertainty, you need to have a killer instinct, and obviously grit. Other careers I considered, I always thought about going further downstream in the commercialization value chain, for instance, going closer to the clinic. But I kept an open mind, and I was happy to, take the challenge of joining commercialization, which is really way upstream in the spectrum. And I've also considered being on the investor side of the table as opposed to always being the one asking for funding. And eventually, maybe I would like to explore the same function in a different discipline because, as I'll come back to, if we believe that innovation can be systematized, then you should be able to take that and apply it elsewhere. Typical activities I do in a day, I actively seek problems worth solving and I validate them. And I'd like to tell you more about what that validation means in the Q&A. I make an effort to disrupt linear thinking to generate disruptive ideas, and lots of them, because most of our ideas fail. We iterate a lot on our ideas, and to do that best, we talk to key opinion leaders and get external validations. Both believers and non-believers help in a way. And the goal of that is really to apply selection pressure on your ideas so that the best ideas will advance. We spend a lot of time determining what that killer experiment is. What is a deal breaker for this venture? What are the go, no go stages? And the goal of that is to actively try and make our ideas fail, and early, because of the opportunity cost. If you're doing this, what else is it that you're not doing that could be better? And we try to be very disciplined about it. And this is what I meant about disciplined entrepreneurship. We spent some time sourcing enabling technologies. Remember those puzzle pieces, and identifying potential collaborators that can gap our expertise, can bridge the gap in our expertise. We spend time experimental planning for the prototyping stage. And once we have something worth pursuing and developing, we incubate these concepts. And here's where you need to get buy-in both internally and from external players, be it strategic partners or investors, and so on. Why I think my role is important is because I subscribe to the thinking that innovation isn't just a matter of luck, and it can actually be systematized and learned and repeated. And I think this is important because many of us, including myself when I was in grad school, thought that, oh, I should be lucky, right place, right time, or I should be a specific breed to think that way. Why I enjoy my role, the best way to describe it is how a colleague of mine said it once. She said, imagine a role that affords you to think wild ideas and also offers you support to bring those ideas to life. Challenges with the role is that development timelines for life sciences companies are very lengthy, especially if you're in a therapeutic space, which is often what we do. There's high failure rate, and we have to future-proof our ideas. We have to think, what can we do that in a few years from now is not replaced by some form of AI, for instance. Future career trajectories, I can give you examples of people that have worked in a venture studio. Some of them have moved on to lead innovation in other big organizations. Remember, big organizations need a steady supply and pipeline of fresh ideas and products. Some of them have joined the companies that their studio created. Some of them enjoy that serial founder role, and otherwise they also operate as advisors and mentors. I thought to leave this with just 3 pieces of advice. Careers beyond academia. One thing that I personally should have thought about was milestones beyond papers when I was in academia. And for anybody who's interested in expanding the audience of their work beyond just academia, obviously, I encourage you to think commercially about your work. Is there a version of what you do that can be thought about in the context of a therapeutic or a tool or an enabling technology? If you are interested in thinking boldly and in disruptive ideas, ask a lot of what-if questions, and that's a great way for you to not think incremental. And finally, you could experiment with innovation technologies, innovation techniques for your day-to-day problem solving. And an example of that is maybe I'll share something that we did with our team yesterday, and it's called subtraction. So usually you have a process, and a piece of this process is a bottleneck. And then instead of trying to deal with it, one way to innovatively approach it is to eliminate it altogether. And Uber is a good example here, where previously taxis needed dispatcher. And that was, someone making the connection between the person who needed a ride and the rides that were available. And this could not be scaled, and it wasn't real time, so it created a lot of delays. But what if we eliminated that altogether? And you can think like that also in our sector, at least, for instance, in CAR-Ts, the ex vivo expansion of the cell is lengthy, complicated, and costly. But how about we eliminate it altogether? And that might lead you to a fresh idea like in vivo CAR-T. Another example is TRIS problem solving, which essentially means the problem that you're looking to solve has likely been solved in another discipline. And an example of that, again, a very generic example is, certain cell types are harder to transduce with virus. And at the core of it, that is a connection problem. The virus and the cell are not connecting. And who better has solved that connection problem than the field of electronics, where they have adapters, and that might lead you to molecular adapters in life sciences. So that's everything I have, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Lili. That was very insightful advice there at the end. I know a lot about your work, but I learned something as well. That was great. Fantastic. All right, I will now introduce our next speaker, Mike Cooke, who is the Chief Executive Officer and co-founder of AmacaThera. He earned his PhD in stem cell biology from the University of Durham in the UK before joining Molly Shoykat's lab at the University of Toronto, which led to their co-founding of AmacaThera to commercialize a proprietary hydrogel platform capable of delivering a wide range of therapeutic molecules. Under Mike's leadership as CEO, AmacaThera has developed a lead product targeting post-operative pain management and is expanding into oncology and other areas. The company has completed a successful phase 1 clinical trial and raised over 13 million US in financing, while also establishing several key strategic partnerships. And with that, I will hand it over to Mike to share your screen and present. I am seeing the Zoom when you're sharing your screen there. So I'll give you a second to pull up your presentation. And while he's doing that, I'll just remind the audience to please put any questions that you have for Lili so far into the Q&A, and we'll answer them after both presentations. And feel free to pop in questions as they come to you during Mike's talk as well. All right, fantastic.
Is the screen
I can see it
showing?
now. Looks great.
Yeah, it's a miracle. I don't know. You would think after all this time being online, I would be able to work this out, but evidently not.
We got there. All right, thanks.
So thank you for the introduction. Thank you for the invitation to talk today. I'm pretty excited to talk about this, my career and my path, because actually the stem cell network has been an integral part to my career and actually AmacaThera. So I'll explain that in a second. So my current position, I'm the CEO, co-founder of AmacaThera. AmacaThera is a startup company spun out of Molly Shoykat's lab at the University of Toronto. We've developed a material that can be injected for long-acting injectables. So you can take a material, you can combine it with anything from stem cells to small molecules, you can inject into a target, and you'll have improved efficacy. So for example, you could take an anesthetic, combine it with our gel, inject it into a surgical incision. You could manage the pain control locally and negate the need for opioids. So really a huge unmet need there. So that's really what AmacaThera is focused around this cool material. My degrees are, so I have an undergrad from Durham, UK. That's in biochemistry and molecular biology. I have a PhD from Durham in stem cell biology. Then I have a GPLLM from the University of Toronto. I did that during COVID because I kind of got bored. Here's my career timeline. This is how the stem cell has played such a fantastic role in my career. So my PhD was 2005 to 2008 at Durham University. During that time, Stem Cell Network reached out to the UK Stem Cell Network and said, hey, look, we're looking to introduce collaborations. Do you want to come visit Canada so we can sort of network? And the two networks wanted to get together. So I applied and was lucky enough to get the grant. So in doing this, the grant really was to increase collaborations, for me to come to the AGM and come meet people. But I said, look, can I do more? So I reached out to some professors at Toronto and said, look, hey, I'm going to be here in town for a few weeks. Can I come work in your lab? And at the time, I didn't really understand how Canadians worked. And Molly replied, no, my lab is awfully full. There's no space. And didn't understand what that meant. So I was like, I'm small. I don't need a lot of space. Let me come. So I just pestered her till she let me come. Molly let me join her lab for 2 weeks before the stem cell network meeting kicked off. We generated some data at the end of the 2 weeks, said to Molly, hey, look, we can take this data, combine it with some stuff I generated back in the UK and publish a paper. Molly was like, okay, wow, that seems good. Do you want a job? So naturally sold all my stuff in the UK, came out to Toronto in 2008 to work as a postdoc in Molly's lab. So at the time, what I was working on was stem cell transplantation for stroke. So we're taking this cool material developed in Molly's lab, combining it with the stem cells, and then injecting it into the stroke injury to see if we could have recovery. Got some really fantastic data, and we were pretty stoked by what we saw. But we said, look, is there a simpler way to make a product that can be commercialized? We can commercialize that first and then build the platform out from there. So that's exactly what we did. So 2014 to 2016, I went out, I spoke to the surgeons and the anesthesiologists to really understand what the unmet need was. And back in 2014, 2016, the surgeons were already talking about the opioid epidemic, the crisis, the unmet need of post-operative pain. So focused the company on post-op pain, formally founded in 2016. So this year, April 23rd, will be a decade of AmacaThera. So it's been quite a journey. From there, we raised a bit of money out of Boston in 2018. That was the seed money. And then we've done several rounds. We've done several financings. We've done some science. We've done some clinical development, GMP manufacturing along the way. And then last year, we announced a licensing deal for $230 million. So pretty excited to have taken this technology, that's something I developed on the bench in Molly's lab, take it all the way through the process and take it to a pharma company that is willing to invest and willing to help us push this asset forwards. So now we're working hand in hand with our partner to push this asset forwards into a phase 2 trial, and then ultimately for them to push it into commercialization. And then from there, we're going to be building out platform opportunities and building out the next great assets. CEO role as a quick glance. So typical background, anybody looking at this, really like a science background, Ph.D. is ideal. A law degree is great. And then some sort of business background is good. Salary ranges, we're not in it for the money. We're taking a technology that we invented and advancing into humans. That's cool. You couldn't give me money to do that. What I do in a sentence, so I would first say English literacy is not what I do in a sentence, because as you can see, this is a pretty poorly crafted sentence, but a little bit of everything. So financing, BD, clinical, manufacturing, regulatory, leading the team. I'll even go and get the coffee. So you have to literally do everything. Key skills, so science and business, that's a given. One of the big things I would say is people management. So you come out of academia, you've been working on the bench, you've been doing your experiments, that's great. Like the biggest problem you have there is sort of like negotiating somebody because you want to use a machine. When you're working with teams, you've really got to work out how to manage teams, and you've got your internal team, you've got external teams, you've got teams that you're actually paying to do. So we work with a lot of CROs, so we work with a lot of groups where we'll pay them to do a task. They'll have a team, and then you're also managing them. So really the skill of managing people, getting everybody along for the journey, that's really a key skill. And then problem solving. Obviously, like every day there's a new problem, so you've just got to solve problems. I was using the template slides, and it said other careers I considered, so I'm not sure how helpful these are to people, but I considered a professor, a photographer, shoemaker, and an airline pilot. Typical activities. So really, no 2 days are the same. But at the same time, that's what's exciting about this. Literally, it's not like year to year it's different. It's like day to day it's different. It's really fantastic what we do. Like you're solving a new problem, you're advancing to the next level, and at the next level, there's a new problem to solve. Typical activities. So again, it's really the whole range. So anything from BD discussions with potential partners, negotiations, legal document review. So I put renting a U-Haul to go pick up equipment. So at one point in the early stages, we're having this issue. We weren't sure how to mix our material on an industrial scale. So we went online. We found an industrial mixer that was out in London, Ontario. No problem. I rented a U-Haul, took some of the guys with me. We got the mixer, loaded it into the U-Haul, and brought it back to the lab. So really willing to do anything, and this variation really makes the job fun and makes the days pretty exciting. Highlights, opportunities, and challenges. Really, every day is a challenge. Like, there's just so much to get done, and so many critical decisions to be made. But so, why is the role important? So, I think seeing this technology that we invented at the bench and pushing it into humans is phenomenal. And then also now with our partner, we can see that there's a way that this could get to a product that could be approved one day to improve human life. Like, that is an important mission to go on. And in my role, I'm able to enable that mission. I'm able to work with the team and push it forwards. Why I enjoy my role? There's a true opportunity to make a difference here. Like, we can really make a difference by advancing this technology. I've probably iterated this, but challenges associated with my role, pretty much everything on a day-to-day. Like, it's a challenge, but it's what makes it fun. Future career trajectories, opportunities. So developing more products, founding more companies, solving more problems, and improving human life. Like, really, how do we keep doing what we're doing? How do we take these exciting inventions that we're inventing here, and how do we advance them and move them forwards? So I added a few extra thoughts here. So some good decisions that I made along the way. So this whole thing, if we sort of just step back from the stem cell network, from the PhD, before that, I did a summer internship. So during my undergrad, I reached out to a bunch of labs, convinced one of them to take me as a summer student. And really, that was when my love of science started, like just being in the lab, just playing around with things, doing experiments. So I think that was a really good decision I made. Not missing an opportunity is another thing that I'm very big on. So there's a few points along my career, like even the stem cell network grant, I was just persistent. So when that came through, my direct supervisor wasn't available. He was on vacation. I emailed him and got an out of office reply, but that application was due before he came back. And he was checking his emails. He said, "Oh, just forget about it. There'll be other opportunities. Don't worry about it." But I was persistent and got my backup supervisor to apply, made him write the recommendation letter, and got it. So just being persistent and not passing an opportunity is something I would recommend everybody to do. I think trying to be more rounded, right? So I think you can be a great scientist, but like, can you be more rounded? And that was part of why I did a law degree during COVID, to like round myself more and develop some more skills. And I think there's academics like that, but then there's also the soft skills of like sort of people management, working with teams and building teams. Other good decisions is really getting good people and good support around me. This whole thing wouldn't have been possible without Molly Shoyket's support at the University of Toronto. Really, from day one, like giving me the lab space to build this idea, to nurture me, and to really help me take this idea and develop it into something that was a fundable company. And from there, we've had countless advisors, and I wish I could name them all, but from regulatory, CMC, manufacturing, clinical, preclinical, really getting good people around you and getting good advice is what you need to do. Lessons learned, I just thought I'd throw in a few here. So never let an opportunity go would be my number one recommendation to everybody. Like, take every opportunity possible. And then network. I think a lot of people say this. To be honest, I didn't understand this feedback that I'm giving you until last year, I would say. And that's getting pretty long on in my career, right? But networking is just enabled. So you just bump into so many random people that know somebody who knows somebody, and then they can make an introduction and like magic happens. So you've just got a network. And I think everybody gives that advice, but I've never really understood how important it was until last year. So I would be a huge advocate for networking. And I'll just sort of finish off with a bit of career planning advice here. So like, I think finding the right path. So I think first of all, you need to try a bunch of different things. I got lucky. I went into the lab. I loved research. It turned out that was great. It was a good fit with me. I pursued that career. At Amaco, I've had people who have come, they've tried BD, they've tried research, they've tried clinical. They've tried a lot of different things. And like a lot of people, they start off doing one thing and they're now doing a different thing. But they tried these different things to understand what they wanted to do. So I'd really advocate trying different things to really find what's a good fit for you. I think you need to get experience as early as possible. So when you're hiring people, it's typically you're looking at how much experience they have. So, but you have to put that into context with their age. So if you're having somebody fairly younger, have they done a summer internship? What have they been doing during the summers? Have they worked in labs or have they worked in BD? So really try and get experience early as possible. Think also you have to think about the company and the culture, and you have to find something that's a good fit for you. Are you more process orientated? Do you want a big company? Or do you prefer chaos and like that's a madness? And is a startup more good for you? So you've got to sort of think about finding the right culture. Probably hammered this one home a few times, but skills, like really try and become more rounded with more skills than just your core competency. And then I just want to finish off with like sort of some advice. Like these are things that are free that I think people don't do enough of. So I don't think people listen enough. So you've got two ears and one mouth. Like you've got to listen, you've got to get that advice and take that advice, and you've got to decide what to do. So I can't advocate so much for this point. Like it's really key and really has helped me along my career and has helped me get to where I am today. So thank you everybody for your attention. Happy to take some questions.
Thank you very much, Mike, for sharing your story and for some very insightful advice there. So I'd like to say on behalf of Medicine by Design and Stem Cell Network, thank you both, Lili and Mike, for your fantastic talks today.